Hello, my name is Dan Stubblefield and I am the chairman of the Alpha Kappa Psi Board of Directors. I'm also the chairperson of the task force that was established to develop and execute the restructuring plan I'm about to review with you. But before I get into some details on the plan itself, I'd like to take a few moments and give you some insight on who was involved and why. This plan, is a very important strategy that will impact the entire organization from top to bottom. Therefore, careful consideration was taken to assemble a key group of brothers who have a passion for Alpha Kappa Psi, an extensive knowledge base to pull from, and who think big picture and long term. Broad representation was assembled from across the organization, ranging from the board of directors, fraternity officers, regional directors, and the Heritage Center staff. Work on this project has spanned over 18 months, encompassing detailed development plans, assessing the risks and rewards of such an undertaking, careful interpretation of the changes involved, and ensuring a strong execution plan is in place. Now let me give you some background as to why this plan was first conceived. Over the last 10 to 15 years, AK Psi has experienced dramatic growth in the number of chapters and members. However, the servicing and leadership structure of the organization has been unchanged for decades. Several areas of the organization have outgrown their capacity for adequate support and leadership oversight, while other areas have plenty of capacity to help. I'll say this, sort of to balance the scales. As is the case in the corporate world, as organizations grow and expand, they must adapt and realign to ensure they provide a consistent or improved level of service and oversight, or putting in place those safeguards to minimize risk. This plan accomplishes these goals and much, much more. A principal element of this restructure is to reduce the volunteer's span of control throughout the organization. Let me explain this. Currently, there is very little emphasis placed on how many chapters that chapter advisors, regional directors, or other key volunteer leaders are required to manage. And as we have grown over the last decade or so, this has placed a great deal of pressure and risk in certain areas of the volunteer structure. This volunteer span of control needs to be reduced to provide a much more effective level of oversight, provide more time for advice and leadership training, and to anticipate our future growth in the years to come. As such, the targeted span of control in this new structure is targeted to be 4. In doing so, this creates more volunteer positions that will help reduce the stress and risk throughout the system. I'll have more on that in just a few minutes. 2 more points to consider. First, our members deserve the highest level of advice and leadership training that we can provide. Our chapters deserve the best volunteer support as well. Even so, properly aligning the chapters will allow for more efficient support from advisors and more time to devote to a smaller local or regional structure. In other words, less stress in the system, effective oversight across the board, simply more value to our members. Second, with more volunteer positions comes more opportunities for individuals to provide leadership and advice, coupled with a better means for succession management. More volunteers in the organization means more time devoted to service, leadership training, personal advancement, the list goes on and on. It also ensures a greater pool of experienced and willing volunteers are available to succeed others in key roles throughout the organization. As student members graduate, more opportunities will exist for their time and talents to be used to better the organization as current leaders rest or retire or move up to higher positions in the structure. Now, hopefully I provided you with a good backdrop for the restructure. Now I'd like to throw a few numbers your way. As stated earlier, Alpha Kappa Psi has had a spectacular period of growth and expansion over the last decade. Since 2002, our student chapters have grown almost 20%, currently with 226 active chapters. Over that same period, our annual initiates have increased by 20% as well, with a run rate approximating 6,500 initiates each year. Please understand this is a great problem to have, but size and growth on this scale is very challenging under the current volunteer and servicing structure, and I haven't even approached the subject of future growth, which I'll get to in just a minute. But first, let me finish our analysis of where we stand in today's environment. Back in 2002, a typical region and its management team had an average of 15 chapters to manage and give effective advice. Today, that number has increased by 20% and now approaches an average of 18 chapters per region. However, that average can still be a little misleading, as some regions are approaching 30 student chapters, a clear sign that a new structure is necessary. Not only have our chapters and initiates rose to record levels, but naturally the sheer size of our membership base has risen as well. Over the last decade, our student members have risen 52% and now total approximately 14,500 members. Consolidating those figures into regions, today there are 7 regions that contain more than 1,000 members to serve by a volunteer management team, a truly formidable task to do so effectively. Because of you and your outstanding efforts, we have had remarkable success in growing and expanding the fraternity into one of the largest fraternal organizations there is. And all trends indicate the growth will stay on a similar path. If the last 10 years isn't reason enough to consider a restructure, the next 10 years will definitely seal the deal. Using some conservative projections for chapter expansion and overall new initiate growth, the fraternity will approach 300 chapters and should surpass 8,000 initiates per year within the next 10 years. If left unchanged, the average number of chapters per region will increase another 32% to over 23 chapters per region. The annual rate of initiates is projected to increase to almost 25% within the next 10 years. Another clear sign that a new system should be on the immediate horizon. Again, a great success story for our fraternity. So hopefully I've laid out a good case for why it's time for a new servicing structure in AKSI and why it is critical we position ourselves to manage the growth and demands of the organization in the years to come. So let's look at what we plan to do. As I mentioned earlier, one of the principal drivers of the restructure is to smooth out the size and chapter imbalance throughout the organization so a more effective service and leadership equation can be provided now and, more importantly, in the future. To do this, we have targeted a much smaller span of control throughout the organizational structure, that being a span of 4. By this I mean no volunteer or box in the org chart will have no more than 4 sub-entities to manage or lead. There may be an exception or two for a short period of time, but the intent is to keep the span of control around 4. 4 new areas have been created, each led by an area vice president. Each area will contain 4 regions. Therefore, the new structure will move from 13 regions to 16, again to help balance out the distribution of members and chapters and to provide a more effective means of servicing, advising, and support for our members and our chapters. One goal of this new structure is to allow greater flexibility for change as the organization expands. Conscious effort has been made to ease the distress as future changes or movements are needed in the future. To help in this effort, a new regional naming scheme has also been created to lessen the attachment to state boundaries or regional alliances while keeping with descriptions that highlight the uniqueness of a specific region of the organization. As the imbalance was leveled out via the new structure, a few chapters have been realigned into new or different regions. Great care and consideration was used during the realignment process regarding location of chapters versus other chapters, impact on current alliances and regions, volunteer travel time, potential impact to fraternity events, and the list goes on and on. After a thorough review and re-review of the new alignments, we believe a sound structure has been established with as minimal impact to the current system as possible. Now let's review how the new structure looks and how it feels. First, let me show you and describe for you the new regions and their names. As you can see, we now have 16 regions, all with a unique geographical nomenclature that portray the specific area of the organization in which they exist. The new regions and their names are on the left, and the old regional classifications are on the right. In many cases, the new region has taken on parts of several old regions to form a new combined region for that section of the organization. For example, the new Eastern Great Plains region consists of chapters from the old Midwest, North Central, and Central regions. In a handful of cases, a new region has chapters from only one of the old regions, given its proximity and realignment to other regions. As another example, the new Northern Rio Grande region only consists of chapters from the former South Central region. As stated earlier, this new naming convention is designed to ease transition of chapters in and out of regions due to placing less emphasis on regional or state boundaries as the organization changes and as it expands further. Keeping with the theme of a span of control of 4 and to install a more effective means of oversight, leadership, accountability, and control with Alpha Kappa Psi, 4 new areas, as I mentioned, have been created, each with 4 regions under them. Each area will be led by an area vice president or an area VP who is recommended by the fraternity president and CEO and then sent to the fraternity board of directors for final approval. These area VPs will have complete oversight responsibility for their area, the regions, and the chapters. You can see on this map here the layout of the 4 regions and the broad expanse that they've got. Breaking down the areas, this slide indicates the 4 regions within each area and the number of chapters within each region and also within each area. You will notice that a fair amount of balance has been spread throughout the new structure with approximately 60 total chapters per area and about 15 or so chapters per region. Again, great care was taken when positioning the regions and the chapters in the new structure, also recognizing the potential for future expansion in certain areas. The next several slides will represent a visual map of the chapters for each area. This slide shows Area 1, which covers the western portion of the organization. The Central Pacific is in red, the Desert Southwest is in blue, the Pacific Northwest is in green, with the Northern Rio Grande region in yellow. And here is the view of Area 1, including our brothers in Hong Kong, all the way across the Pacific. Area 2 covers a large part of the central geographic area of the fraternity from Colorado all the way to West Virginia. Eastern Great Plains region is in red, the Western Great Lakes is in blue, the Valley Crossroads region is in green, and the Western Great Plains is in yellow. Area 3 concentrates on the northeast section from Upper New York down to Virginia and all the way over to the United Kingdom, as the next slide shows. The Atlantic Metro region is in red, Central Atlantic is in blue, the Northern Atlantic is in green, and the Eastern Great Lakes is in yellow. As I did in Area 1, this view of Area 3 shows our brothers all the way across the big pond over in the United Kingdom and as part of the Northern Atlantic region. And finally, Area 4 is primarily the southeast portion of the organization. Carolina Coastal is in red, Atlantic Gulf Coast is in blue, the Southern Bluegrass is in green, and the Southern Delta region is in yellow. Now, to help everyone know where your individual chapter is located, we have provided this friendly link that will take you to the following web page. As you can see on this web page, this is a list of every chapter in the organization, and at the top of the web page is individual letters that you can click on one of the letters, for example, the letter H, and it'll take you straight to your chapter. And you'll be able to see where your chapter follows in the new structure and which new region your new chapter will fall into. So hopefully that'll help you understand where each one of your chapters was and where it is in the new structure. Now that I've shown you a graphical representation of the chapters, this slide depicts the new structure from an organizational point of view. This view points out the 4 area vice presidents and 4 regional directors working alongside each area VP. And this next view, somewhat busy, I must admit, highlights the area org chart with 4 regional directors having 4 sectional directors, and each of those having 4 chapter advisors. Again, as I mentioned, working to execute that span of control of 4 wherever possible throughout the new structure. So where do our alumni chapters and closed student chapters fall into the new organizational structure? Alumni chapters will combine to make a separate region which will be managed by the elected executive vice president. This will allow them representation within the chapter congress, but does not put the management responsibility on a regional director. Alumni chapters have a unique set of operational needs, work plans, lifestyles, etc., that require separate handling and focus apart from student chapters. The hope here is to create a special emphasis for alumni chapters via the Office of the Executive Vice President and allow more effective student chapter guidance to be the primary focus of the regional director. Enclosed student chapters will be plotted in the new structure to give us a general idea of the region in which they will be placed should we have the opportunity to reopen that chapter and to give brothers from closed student chapters a regional home. Switching now to what's next in the implementation timeline for the new structure. This is the first official announcement of this structure. Additional time will be allocated at the upcoming PBLIs to talk some more about the new structure and answer any questions students or alumni may have. As the spring semester concludes and we move into summer, brochures, website information, Twitter feeds, Facebook, and email will all be used to market and discuss the new structure. Dedicated time will also be placed on the new structure during officer training sessions in the spring and summer. In a few months, the new regional directors will be approved by the Board of Directors to take on lead roles for the new regions. In addition, the 4 new area VPs have been approved and will work with their respective regional directors to efficiently put the new structure into motion. More communication on these 2 fronts will follow very soon. After months and months of planning, the new structure will take effect on July 1st of this year in advance of the start of the fall semester in August and September. Keep in mind, though, all the pre-planning, training, communication, form changes, and other areas that are impacted by the new structure will already have occurred or be in place prior to July 1st. We chose July 1st as the official go-live date because this corresponds to the end of the fiscal and academic years for the fraternity. So in conclusion, hopefully I have covered the importance and reasoning behind the new alignment and servicing structure, explained our approach and how it will provide a more effective means to service, advise, and lead our members, and fleshed out how it will provide the room to expand and further change shape in the future. As the organization changes, as it grows, the new structure will undoubtedly change over time. Understanding that future chapter and regional realignments are probably to meet our organizational needs will be essential. All change, especially on this scale, can be difficult, but by working together and embracing this new direction, we can ensure the fraternity has the means to steer towards its vision and has the brightest of futures ahead. It is with great pride that the Board of Directors, the management team, and the Heritage Center staff offer this new structure to our brotherhood to improve and ensure the quality and consistency in our chapter services. Thank you and have a great day.